Damn, Canelo's really playing a lot of people for fools. He's having fun with this. The whole boxing world is watching Canelo, seeing who his next opponent choice is going to be. And there was a tweet, I think, or no, it was an Instagram. Well, first of all, let me just rewind a couple of hours. I was watching a Boxing Wave video and it was breaking down, Canelo's different options and what's going on with the PBC, just what the most attractive options were for fight fans and stuff like that. Great video. It was titled, Canelo Leaves the Boxing Community Guessing Who is Next. And then when I get home, I get a text or a couple of texts and they're giving me this screenshot of a Jermall Charlo, or what appears to be like a Jermall Charlo IG story, Instagram story. And it says something to the effect of Canelo is fighting Jermall Charlo May 4th. And I'm thinking, no, that sucks. And it's nothing, no knock to Jermall Charlo. Like, I hope Jermall Charlo can develop back into vintage Jermall Charlo form. I hope he's able to get there and have super significant fights. I mean, he's still undefeated and I think he still holds it. Yeah, WBC middleweight champion as it stands. But if you were to talk about the four options that were being spoken about the most in terms of Canelo's next potential opponent, who was it? Well, first of all, everybody wants David Benavidez, or almost everybody wants David Benavidez. That's the divisional king. He's the one who's proven himself. A two-time divisional champ who never lost his belt in the ring, still undefeated, and is now coming off back-to-back wins against Caleb Plant and then stopping Demetrius Andrade in the middle rounds, not even in the late rounds. We're just getting into the middle rounds. Super impressive. He's kind of fee-fi-fo-fumming his way through the 168-pound division as it stands. And he's saying, if Canelo doesn't want to fight me, I'll go ahead and fight everybody he would be fighting or should be fighting. But by and large, the consensus is we want to see Canelo fight that monster, David Benavidez, the young guy who I think a lot of people are really wondering, how will Canelo do against David Benavidez? I feel like the sentiment on that one is up in the air, way more 50-50 than it was like 1 to 2 years ago. So there's Benavidez, then there's Terrence Crawford kind of being an outside chance, maybe Canelo versus Crawford. And then it was maybe Jaime Munguia, since Munguia came off the stoppage win over Ryder, and they've been kind of angling towards that possibility for some time. So it's those three, and then it's Jermall Charlo. And out of the four, it's no question. If you were to take a poll on rank who you want to see Canelo fight against, I want to see him fight against David Benavidez or Crawford number one, and then Munguia number two, do that. Jermall Charlo would by far have the fewest number one votes. Almost nobody wants to see that fight next. And again, that's no knock to what Jermall Charlo has done and what he, I believe, has potential to continue to do. But timing matters and context matters. So when I saw that IG Live, I'm thinking, no, that sucks. That sucks. For fight fans, that sucks. So just before getting into doing a video reacting to that news, quote unquote, I started to think, and I'm like, there's no way that they would have the next Canelo fight be announced via Jermall's IG story. And if not, what did he go rogue? And then so I'm like, no, there's got to be more to it. Before I act on this one, now that I think about it, it's only Jermall Charlo who said something about this. And then I saw that there were certain reactions, I think Paulie Malignaggi immediately came up with something with a duck. Is he going to take that down? I mean, I'm sure he's going to do a follow-up video saying, hey, I was wrong. They were, I saw this, and I'm sure that that video is yet to come. But then I looked online and I looked at let's look at what Michael Benson has to say. And I think he's UK based. So I'm thinking, well, he might be sleeping now. So maybe it's the Mike Coppingers and, others who might have more information on that, Dan Rayfield or somebody. But then I'm like, let's just check Michael Benson, because when it comes to just that new breaking tweet or X, it's often him. And then I see that Jermall Charlo says, or confirms, I have not spoken with, Al Heyman since my last fight, and there is no discussion about me and Canelo. And I'm wondering, did somebody get on the line? What the are you doing? Or was he put up to it to keep us dummies guessing? I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad that I didn't react to that first news about Canelo versus Jermall Charlo. So I just, before we go, want to kind of give you who I want Canelo to fight, since it has kind of sucked the whole boxing community into it story-wise. Canelo's doing that shit perfectly, man. His team, they're keeping us pretty on the edge of our seats, I have to say, because there's so many people who, as soon as the opponents announce and it's not David Benavidez, people will just launch out of their chairs, even though I think that we've all come to kind of almost like expect it not to be David Benavidez. And the sentiment or the idea is that maybe they don't do that in May. Maybe they do it in September. But I'm thinking like, well, what if David wins? Then you could do like the rematch in September. And, where does that leave Terrence Crawford now that Tim Tszю's not an option? But in terms of who I would like to see Canelo fight, for the longest, I was on that David Benavidez train. Like, if you were to ask me at any point over the past like year and a half, who I want Canelo to fight next, maybe even 2 years. I mean, longer if you consider when Canelo actually went to super middleweight. I was just thinking it's a damn shame David Benavidez doesn't have a belt, because he being Canelo is able to scoop up all the belts without fighting David Benavidez, the guy who, even though he was super young at the time, and he was even younger when he first won the WBC belt, he was like 21, 22 getting a belt. But we were like, yeah, but can he beat that guy? As impressive as the win over Callum Smith was, and I was impressed by that, I thought that there was a lot of risk and danger going into that fight with the much bigger Callum Smith, with Canelo being out of the ring for a year, and his only taste of 168 at the time was Rocky Fielding, even though Canelo also went up and stopped Sergey Kovalev. Magnificent career. I know a lot of people hate on his track record, fight over fight, but no, we could have that discussion later. But I've always wanted, or at least in recent years, wanted Benavidez versus Canelo. But now I was really thinking about it today. And again, some of this was inspired, shout out, while watching the Boxing Wave video. But I think I want the Terrence Crawford fight for Canelo. And here's why. From a divisional standpoint, there's no argument against David Benavidez. He is clearly the guy who really deserves and needs that. That fight is so important right now for the supremacy in that division of this era. Because again, yes, Canelo became undisputed, but like Jay-Z said, finish your breakfast. There was always that one box he didn't check during the time he was stampeding through 168. So David Benavidez, and again, since that, Benavidez has beaten Plant and Andre via stoppage. But if you consider where Terrence Crawford has been on the pound for pound list, you consider what he's coming off right now in terms of the buzz has never been higher after you, or as you dismantle Errol Spence. And again, this stuff is a couple divisions below, 3 divisions below. But when you look at the esteem that Crawford and his career are held in, and some people have held these sentiments about Terrence Crawford's, track record, his abilities, just in terms of how good and great he was. Some people have held that belief longer than others. Some weren't convinced until they saw him beat Errol Spence, and still some might chirp about underplaying or undervaluing that. I'm not going to get into that either. But if you look at Terrence Crawford, he's also 36 years old. Ironically, the same age Floyd Mayweather was when he beat Canelo. Something to think about. But that also tells you where Floyd was, who, was as good as you could get going into your mid-30s in terms of still being as sharp as as you can be, and just being elite at 36, 35. If you look at the different careers, Sugar Ray Leonard, other guys, they weren't exactly that at 35, 36. So Floyd is the exception. But just know, and I know Terrence Crawford takes care of himself super well, but if you look at other fighters, other great welterweights, and what they were doing at 35, 36, 37 years old, it usually wasn't good, even for most, or at least, most of the greats. And we're going to ask that Terrence Crawford to go up 3 divisions to try to knock off Canelo? Well, if anybody should be granted or spared the grace and granted that sort of opportunity for risk and reward, if anybody, because a lot of people don't like those 2 division jumps. I know that Boxing Wave, who I reference, also isn't a fan of that, nor am I. I hated it when they made Kell Brook, or Triple G versus Kell Brook. I didn't love it when they made Canelo versus Amir Khan, Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia. There was some intrigue for it felt stupid after I was watching the fight, like, because not that I picked Mikey Garcia, but I thought that he was potentially dangerous in that fight. Richard Dwyer actually, I think, picked, it could have been odds based, but he thought that Mikey Garcia was a bad matchup for Errol Spence Jr. And then Errol Spence did what he did. Point being, I haven't been a fan of these 2 division jumps. And there's another one that I'm not mentioning. There's a 4th one from recent memory that stands out. But if I was to make an exception for anybody to do something like that, it would be for a Terrence Crawford. You know what, Crawford? You want to go up 3 divisions and dare to be great? Go right on ahead. You've earned that. And so I'm not going to be mad at that. Not only that, but I think that should almost jump the line and go ahead of David Benavidez because of his age. Because if it's not now, it's never. So if Crawford wants the Canelo fight, truly wants the Canelo fight, and Canelo's down, and the powers that be are able to, make both fighters and all parties happy, and they can make that fight, unlike how I was feeling just yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, my number one opponent for Canelo would not be David Benavidez. David Benavidez is going to be there. Now, if Canelo loses, all bets are off. Then, Crawford truly shook up the world, right? But David Benavidez is going to be there unless the play, and this is something that I've been thinking about as well, I'm of the mind that I think Canelo might be trying to wait David Benavidez out. And I know on one hand, it's like, well, Canelo's the one entering his mid-30s. Benavidez is the one in his 20s. Exactly. How much longer can he make 168? I feel like he's been on borrowed time in that division since he lost his belt the second time before the Romer Angulo fight. I mean, just age-wise and the way that your body naturally builds and grows, and given David Benavidez' sheer size, he can't be much longer for this division. And I kind of feel like that's a part of the calculus here when it comes to Canelo's matchmaking. So in that regard, David Benavidez versus Canelo versus Benavidez, that fight is on the clock too, but it's more weight based in that case. But at least Canelo's jumped weight before. He's gone to 175. Not to say that he would fight Benavidez there. I'm sure that he would. And if he seems reluctant to fight him at 168, he wouldn't be in a hurry to fight him at light heavyweight. But I think that it's more urgent that they make the Canelo versus Terrence Crawford fight, because if Terrence Crawford truly wants to do that, I think all of us boxing fans are kind of looking at it. Even the ones who think that Canelo will win, regardless of who you think will win or who you would make Canelo the favorite. But regardless of what you think Terrence Crawford's chances are in the fight, there's a ton of intrigue. And when you're talking about generational best versus generational best, I feel like sometimes that overrides the conventional rules, the don't jump to divisions. If Sugar Ray Leonard wants to do something stupid, or Roberto Duran wants to do something stupid, and by stupid, I mean courageously crazy, go ahead and let him do it. Manny Pacquiao, I mean, only a Manny Pacquiao could just rummage through the divisions in the way that he was doing it. Certain people, certain fighters, they defy the rules. So yeah, I'm hoping for Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford. I'm hoping for that news now. And if not that, definitely hoping for Canelo versus Benavidez. If not either of those two, I don't know. I guess Jaime Munguia. I get whoever, Edgar Berlanga, whatever you want to do, Canelo, at that point, if it's not one of those two. Unless he throws us all a curveball and picks David Morrell Jr. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this whole fiasco, on this whole Canelo carpet ride that he's got us, boxing fans on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.